الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه يسبح له فيها بالغدو والآصال رجال لا تلهيهم تجارة ولا بيع عن ذكر الله وإقام الصلاة وإيتاء الزكاة يخافون يوما تتقلب فيه القلوب والأبصار. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
I would like to begin by congratulating you all, my dear brothers and sisters, on the birth of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam. The second Imam of Ahl al-Bayt and the first grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, whose birth was a day of joy for the Muslims, for Rasulullah, for Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim salam. The birth of Imam Hassan alayhi salam was a day of joy, and it is a day of joy for the Mu'mineen all over the world. 1400 years after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, you still find believers gathered to celebrate the birth of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And this is something that will bring honor and joy to our lives in this life and in the afterlife. Another reason that I'm very happy is to see these wonderful faces, alhamdulillah. After several years of being away, alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to see the faces of the mu'mineen, the believers, who I recognize most of your faces, alhamdulillah, and we have had good times with all of you. So I am very glad to be here, and inshallah we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our a'mal during the upcoming 2 weeks until the day of Eid, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the marhumeen during these holy nights, during the remaining nights of the month of Ramadan. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The verse that I began reciting, the verse discusses the houses of the prophets. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. This verse, it speaks about certain homes that are considered just like the masjids. And there is no doubt amongst the Muslims that the house of Rasulullah is one of those homes. And the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima al-Zahra alayhim salam is also one of these homes, because when this verse came down, في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه, the homes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed to elevate. And these homes are the homes where the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, the dhikr of Allah is mentioned. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, one of the companions asked him, which homes are these? So Rasulullah replied, Tilka buyutul anbiya. Those are the homes of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The homes of the prophets, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows these homes to be elevated. They're not like your home and my home. And then the hadith says that one of the companions, who happened to be Abu Bakr, he stood and he told Rasulullah, "O Rasulullah, is this one of those homes?" And he pointed to the door of Fatima and Amir al-Mu'mineen. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi replied, "This is the best of those homes. This is the best of those homes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows to elevate." So today when we gather and we celebrate the birth of Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba alayhi salam, we are celebrating the birth of a man who was born in one of the most purified houses. A man whose life from the beginning until the end was a life of sacrifice. A man whose house was the masjid. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, when he first migrated to Medina, he built the masjid. And the Muslims, they built their masjid, they built their homes around the masjid of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Some of the Muslims, they had doors. They had doors entering in the masjid of Rasulullah. They had a front door and a back door. The back door, it would bring them into the masjid of the Prophet. One day, Jibreel comes to Rasulullah and he orders Rasulullah to close all of the doors, except his door and the door of Fatima, the door of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So Rasulullah, he ordered the Muslims to close their doors. They have to enter through the main door of the masjid. The only ones who had a door, who had access to the masjid of Rasulullah was Rasulullah from his home and Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima. Even some of the family of Rasulullah, Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet, Rasulullah ordered him to close his door. To close the door, and he has to walk in just like all of the Muslims. But the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purified them. Because they are purified, there's no difference between their home and the masjid. This is the fadl, this is the praise of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. في بيوت أذن الله أن ترفع ويذكر فيها اسمه. So when we gather, we remember the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. It is this household who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has purified. And Imam Hassan al-Mujtaba, he is from amongst that household. However, my dear brothers and sisters, we see that Imam Hassan and all of the Imams, they were oppressed. They were neglected. Their rights were not given to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets and Imams for us. وَجَعَلْنَاهُمْ أَئِمَّةً يَهْدُونَ بِأَمْرِنَا وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ فِعْلَ الْخَيْرَاتِ وَإِقَامِ الصَّلَاةِ وَإِيتَاءِ الزَّكَاةِ وَكَانُوا لَنَا عَابِدِينَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes the role of the Imam and how they were sent by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, we see that certain individuals neglected the Imams. And Imam al-Hassan, he was one of those. Imam al-Hassan, although he was the first grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he was the prince of that society. He is the grandson of Rasulullah. Rasulullah used to show love. Rasulullah used to respect him in front of all of the Muslims. You see that he was neglected, just like Amir al-Mu'mineen was neglected. Just like the other Imams, they were neglected right after the death of Rasulullah, where a certain group of people turned back over their heels. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala states in the Quran, وَمَا مُحَمَّدٌ إِلَّا رَسُولٌ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ الرُّسُلُ أَفَإِنْ مَاتَ أَوْ قُتِلْ انقلبتم على أعقابكم. After, if he dies or he's killed, انقلبتم, there will be an inqilab, there will be you will flip back over your heels and you will turn away from the teachings of Rasulullah and the Quran. And this is exactly what happened. So we see Imam al-Hassan, he was neglected by this group of people. the group after Rasulullah, just like they neglected Amir al-Mu'mineen. Second, we see another group of people that oppressed Imam al-Hasan. They are the historians, Muslim historians. Until today, you find in history books talk and mention of Imam al-Hasan in a way that is inappropriate and in a way that is not befitting for a man of his caliber, a man of his respect. For example, one of the things that they mention is Imam al-Hasan. He was a man who had 70 wives. He used to get married and he used to keep getting married and divorced. Now, if this had an ounce of truth to it, you would see some proof. You would see some signs. For example, if someone had 70 wives, you would see that he would have at least 70 kids. He would have more than one child. Imam al-Hasan, his children, they're mentioned, they're numbered, and on the day of Ashura, most of them were killed with Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So if he was a man who kept getting married and kept getting divorced, you would see the signs of that, and this is just one refute to this argument. And a third category oppressed the Imam, and those were the people who were claiming to be the Shias of the Imam. People who claimed to be the followers of the Imam. And this is something that should shake us, because we also claim to be the followers of the Imams. We also claim to love the Imams. And we see that time after time, Imam after an Imam, their people neglected them. Their people turned against them. Amir al-Mu'mineen in the Battle of Siffin, he's very close, minutes away from defeating Muawiyah. Malik al-Ashtar, he was all the way in the back. He was going to defeat Muawiyah and everything would have ended. You see a group of people within the camp of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they turned against Amir al-Mu'mineen. He had to call Malik al-Ashtar back and stop the fighting, because they were fooled, they were deceived. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, the same thing happened with him. The same thing happened with him. He had to deal with the challenges of his father, and unfortunately, many of those challenges, they came from people that claimed to be followers of the Ahlul Bayt. People that claimed to be Shi'as of the Imam. One day, one of the men who was on the camp of Imam al-Hasan, he tells him, As-salamu alayka ya mudhilla al-mu'mineen. Peace be upon you, O one who brought dhillah, the one who humiliated the mu'mineen. Why? Because Imam al-Hasan, he made a peace treaty with Muawiyah. And you see that certain accusations against the Imam, they came from people who claimed to be followers of the Imam. So that we do not fall in the same problem that those people fell in, we have to learn the lives of the Imams. We have to study the lives of the Imams. How many of us actually know the lives of the Imams? We know, yes, we all, alhamdulillah, we know the life of Imam al-Hussein. We know about the sacrifice of Imam al-Hussein. But what do we know about Imam al-Hadi, Imam al-Hasan al-Askari, Imam al-Jawad, Imam al-Rada? What do we know about these Imams? Unfortunately, we, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, there is very little that we know. This is why it is our duty to know the lives of the Imams, because we will be asked. You know when we will be asked? The first night in our grave. The first night in the grave, the angels, they will come and they will ask us about our Imams. What am I going to say? Am I ready to answer? This is why, my dear brothers and sisters, we have to prepare ourselves. And we have to study the lives of the Imams. And in order to study the lives of the Imams, we have to know their history. When it comes to Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, we see that his life could be divided into three categories. The first category is his early stages with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, and up until the martyrdom, the demise of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi. Then the second stage of the life of Imam al-Hasan is from the death of Rasulullah and the death of his mother, the mother of Imam Hassan, Fatima al-Zahra, up until the martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And the third stage, the third phase of the life of Imam Hassan is after the death of Amir al-Mu'mineen and his official imamah. When we come and we look at the first phase of the life of Imam Hassan alayhi salam, we see that he was born 3 years after the migration of Rasulullah, and his father is Amir al-Mu'mineen, his mother is Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, and his grandfather is Rasulullah. Imam al-Hassan, he opened his eyes to these beautiful faces. He opened his eyes to Rasulullah, to Amir al-Mu'mineen, to Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. And the birth of Imam al-Hassan, it was a day, an event in the Muslim calendar where all of the Muslims were happy. This was the first grandson of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. And we know that Rasulullah, he didn't have sons. Rasulullah, he would have sons, and his sons, they would die. This is why Rasulullah, he says, جَعَلَ اللَّهُ ذُرِّيَّتِي مِنْ صُلْبِ عَلِي. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined for the children of Rasulullah and the progeny of Rasulullah to be from Ali ibn Abi Talib and Fatima al-Zahra. Even though Rasulullah had numerous wives, but through a miracle. The only way you see it, it was through a miracle, that the only wife of Rasulullah that was able to have children and her children live was Khadija. And Khadija, out of her children, the only one who had children and the children survived was Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. And this is one of the miracles. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Rasulullah, إِنَّا أَعْطَيْنَاكَ كَوْثَرْ فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. Your enemy, the ones who used to walk behind Rasulullah and ridicule Rasulullah, they used to call him Abtar. Abtar means the one who does not have a tail, the one who does not have a family, the one who doesn't have a progeny. They would call him Abtar. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ شَانِئَكَ هُوَ الْأَبْتَرُ. Your enemy is the Abtar. Today, you see that the children of Rasulullah, one of the miracles of Rasulullah, you see that the descendants of Rasulullah are still amongst us and with us. And this is one of the miracles that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala honored Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi with. Rasulullah, he walks in on the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Fatima, and he sees that Fatima al-Zahra has just given birth. He asks Amir al-Mu'mineen to hand him the baby, the newborn. He takes this child. He asks Amir al-Mu'mineen, what have you named him? Amir al-Mu'mineen replies, I shall not name him until you name him, O Rasulullah. And Rasulullah replied, and I shall not name him until my Lord names him. Jibreel comes to Rasulullah. He tells him, Allah sends his salams to you, and he tells you to name him Shubbar. Because Shubbar is the first son of Harun. And Harun was the Khalifa of Musa. And because Ali is like Harun was to Musa, therefore you name him after the children of Harun. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi replied, he tells him, but I'm an Arab. I need an Arabic name. So Jibreel tells him, Allah tells you to name him Hassan. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he named him Al-Hassan. And he became Al-Hassan. Hassan means the good. He became the good wherever he goes. He became the man of barakah, the man of blessings wherever he goes. From his early childhood until he grew older, Imam al-Hassan was an imam of barakah. Wherever he goes, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he would see the Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein walking in the masjid. Fatima al-Zahra, she placed them wearing red thobe, a red dishtasha. They're walking in the masjid, they're stumbling. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, he's on the minbar, he's delivering a divine message, the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The message of Rasulullah was not like your message and my message. He's delivering وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Anything that Rasulullah does, it's a wahi. Rasulullah is fulfilling a responsibility. It's an oath that he's taken to deliver this message. He sees Al-Hasan and Al-Husayn stumbling, walking between the Sahaba. Rasulullah, he interrupts the message. He comes down. He interrupts the divine message. And he comes down from the minbar. He carries them. And he comes and he brings them on the minbar. And he sits one on his right hand, one on his left hand, and he begins to kiss them, and he says, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn, Sayyida Shababi Ahl al-Jannah. In another hadith, he says, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn, Imaman, Qama aw Qa'ada. Hasan and Husayn, they are Imams, whether they raise, they stand, they have a government, or they do not have a government. In another hadith, he says, Al-Hasan wal-Husayn, Rayhanataya min ad-dunya. Hasan and Husayn, they are the flowers, my flowers from this dunya. We see Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he played a very important role even at a young age. Imam Hassan is mentioned in the Quran, in the verse of Tathir, إنما يريد الله ليذهب عنكم الرجس أهل البيت ويطهركم تطهيرا. This came down on Imam Hassan. He was one of the Ashab al-Kisa. In another event, the event of the Mubahala, where Rasulullah Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered the Prophet, فَمَنْ حَاجَّكَ فِيهِ مِنْ بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَكَ مِنَ الْعِلْمِ فَقُلْ تَعَالَوْا نَدْعُ أَبْنَاءَنَا وَأَبْنَاءَكُمْ وَنِسَاءَنَا وَنِسَاءَكُمْ وأنفسنا وأنفسكم ثم نبتهل فنجعل لعنة الله على الكاذبين. There were many children, there were many women. Rasulullah, he only took Fatima out of all of the women in his life. There were many women in the life of Rasulullah. He only took Fatima. And from the children, he only took Imam al-Hasan and Imam al-Husayn alayhim salam. These were the children. Rasulullah, he wants to show the world that this is my family. Because what kind of a family were they? They were an honorable, a purified family. Imam al-Hasan, he used to go to the masjid. Rasulullah said in the masjid, she tells him, your son Hassan. He memorizes the speech of Rasulullah. Then he comes in the home and he delivers the speech of Rasulullah to his mother Fatima. One day, Fatima al-Zahra, she had placed a small minbar for Imam al-Hasan in the house. And Amir al-Mu'mineen, he knew that Imam al-Hasan, he speaks just like his grandfather Rasulullah. He inherited this from Rasulullah. So, he's speaking, and then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he comes, he wants to listen, he wants to see his son. He wants to see the beauty of his son speaking. As soon as Imam al-Hasan, he senses that his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, is listening to him, he becomes quiet. He becomes quiet. His mother tells him, oh my dear son, speak. He tells her, Ummah, kalla lisani. Oh my mother, I cannot speak. Because my father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, is here. I cannot speak. The hayba, the respect towards his father, Amir al-Mu'mineen, it made him remain quiet. This is Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. And this was one of the phases of the life of Imam al-Hasan, who he spent with Rasulullah, and all of the Muslims, they saw and they witnessed with their own eyes the respect that Rasulullah shows towards Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. The second phase was the phase of during the imamah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. And we see that Imam al-Hasan, although he lost his mother at a young age, he lost his grandfather at a young age, Imam al-Hasan was the right-hand man of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He played a key role in the imamah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, helping his father, supporting his father, being there for his father. Many times he would carry out tasks for Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. And in the battles, Imam Hassan, he was in the forefront defending his father and fighting the wars and the battles of his father Amir al-Mu'mineen. Even though his father Amir al-Mu'mineen, he tried to protect Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. It is narrated that in some of the battles, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would send his other sons, Al-Abbas, he would send Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyah, he would send them to the battlefield, but then he would keep Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein from going and fighting. He doesn't want them to fight. He wants to protect their lives. So Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiyah, who's the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he tells Amir al-Mu'mineen, oh my dear father, I see that you are differentiating between me and between Imam al-Hassan and Imam al-Hussein. Amir al-Mu'mineen, he replies, oh my dear son, you are my son, and I love you, and you are like my hand. You are my right-hand man. You are there for me. But al-Hassan and al-Hussein, they are like my eyes. And I protect my eyes with my hands. Because they are the sons of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because they are connected to Rasulullah. Imam al-Hassan, nevertheless, he played a very important role in the Battle of Jamal, where the camel, the wife of Rasulullah, Aisha, she was on the camel, and the camel was surrounded with horsemen and surrounded with soldiers that no one could come and bring that camel down. This is why it's called Ma'arakat al-Jamal, the battle of the camel. The only one who was able to penetrate through the soldiers and penetrate through the ranks of the soldiers was Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. He went with one blow, he brought down the camel, he struck the camel on its legs, he brought down the camel, and the battle was over. This is the bravery of Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. This was the second phase, and the third phase of the life of Imam al-Hassan was during the time of his imamah. And that was perhaps the most difficult phase. Because that was a time where the Imam dealt with challenges. He was attacked by the enemy and by the friend. And he inherited the challenges and the trials that his father Amir al-Mu'mineen had. He inherited a war. He had to continue the war of Amir al-Mu'mineen with Muawiyah. But he had one problem. And this is the same problem that Amir al-Mu'mineen had. He had many men. There was a lot of men. There were thousands of men. But unfortunately, the taqwa was not there. They were not genuine. He received news that some of these men, they will turn against him in the middle of the battle. Because Muawiyah was handing out money. He was distributing money. Just like we see some of the governments today. They go and they give money. The United Nations, the most respected organization, they come and they flip. They come and they change what they have. Because of money. Money does a lot. Muawiyah, he began to distribute money amongst the Sahaba of Imam al-Hassan. And he began to buy them one after the other. Until one day Imam al-Hassan, he was stabbed in his leg by one of the men who was claiming to be one of the followers of the Imam. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam was forced to make a treaty with Muawiyah. And of course today you find different groups of people accusing the Imam. Some people, you see that some of the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, every Muharram, every Ashura, you see them saying, no, Al-Hussein was a violent man. Al-Hassan, he was a man of peace. And Rasulullah, he said a hadith about Imam al-Hassan that Allah will bring two factions together regarding Imam al-Hassan. This is a hadith that they use, if we were to accept this hadith, this is a hadith that is used to bring down the Ahlul Bayt. It's not used to show respect to the Ahlul Bayt. Because Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Baqir, Imam al-Jawad, all of the Imams, they played a role and they were divinely sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever they did, we cannot question the actions of the Imam. Imam al-Hassan, he wants to make a peace treaty. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destined for him. Imam al-Hussein has to wage war and he has to fight defending the religion. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose for him. Imam al-Kadhim, he dies in the dungeons of Harun. Imam al-Rida, he takes wilayat al-ahd from al-Ma'mun, the son of Harun. If we were to see that the Imams have to always fight, then you wouldn't see Imam al-Rida taking wilayat al-ahd. We don't know what the responsibilities are of the Imams. And you see some of the prophets, they also did this. Some prophets, Musa, he fights Fir'aun. Yusuf, he takes the wilayat al-ahd, he becomes the Aziz. We cannot come and question what the Imam did, and this is a peaceful Imam, and this is an Imam that likes to fight, and an Imam of war. We are not in that level to question them. Second, we see that the Imam, he made the peace treaty because that was his only route. He would have been killed. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, he knew he was going to be killed, but at least he had a handful of men that were going to be there with him. And for the ones who say that Imam al-Hassan, he gave up the imamah for Muawiyah because of the peace treaty, that's not the case. Imam al-Hassan did not give up the imamah. Imam al-Hassan gave up the political position, but the imam is always with the imam. Just like Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he gave up the political role, did he give up the actual imamah? No, the imamah is something that is with him, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appointed him in that role. And finally, we see that the peace treaty of Imam al-Hassan with Muawiyah, it facilitated the day of Ashura. It facilitated the certain steps necessary for Imam al-Hussein to have a strong hujjah when he stands against Yazid. Because if Imam al-Hussein, he just wanted to go and fight, people would have accused Imam al-Hussein. But you see that every single point, every single agreement that was agreed upon, it was broken. But Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, he fulfilled his task and he fulfilled his role towards religion by preserving the Shi'as and the lives of the Shi'as. And this is exactly what he did. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, of course there's another aspect of his life, and that is his akhlaq, his manners. One day a man from Sham, he comes, and of course Sham, the people of Sham, they were fueled with the hatred towards the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Because Muawiyah, every time a speaker goes up on the minbar, he would attack the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. He would attack Amir al-Mu'mineen, Fatimat al-Zahra, even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. Muawiyah, he could not tolerate hearing Ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah being recited by the adhan. And he tried to even bring down the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. So one day a man from Sham, he goes to Medina, he sees Imam al-Hassan. He begins to curse. He begins to use foul language against Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam. What is Imam al-Hassan supposed to do? When someone who is low, someone who is beneath you, begins to curse at you, begins to use foul language, what are you supposed to do? Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, who had, they say he had Baha al-Muluk. When he walks, people would look at him and they would respect him like a king is walking. But yet, he was very humble. Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam, this man begins to curse at him. The Imam, he takes the orders of the Quran. ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم. Repel evil with good, because the one who is your enemy will become a waliyun hamim, will become a very close friend. Imam al-Hassan, he tells this man, you seem like a stranger. You seem like you don't live here. If you need a place to stay, come and stay with us. If you need clothes, we will give you clothes. If you need food, we will give you food. Anything you need, come to us and we will give you. The man, he begins to cry, and then he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam حيث يجعل رسالته. Allah knows exactly who He should choose as an imam, as a leader. It is a man like you who deserves to be an imam and a leader of the Muslims. In another event, Imam Hassan alayhi salam, he's on his horse, he's traveling, and then he sees poor people who had skin disease. They had skin disease, no one goes near them. No one talks to them. No one eats with them. No one will interact with them. They see Imam Hassan and they are eating. They're sitting and eating. They invite him. They tell him, "Oh, son of Rasulullah, come and join us." The Imam, he comes down from his horse and he goes, he sits, he eats with them, and then he says, "Inna Allah la yuhibbul mutakabbirin." Allah does not like the ones who have takabbur, who have arrogance. And then he eats from their food, which is very little, and then he tells them, "Now you come to my home and I will feed you." He brings them to his home, he gives them food, he sits with them, and he feeds them and he gives them clothes. This is the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. This is the akhlaq of Imam al-Hasan. Imam al-Hasan was known for his generosity as well. The Imam of generosity. It is mentioned that 2 times in his life he gave away everything that he owned. He gave away everything. He emptied his home, he emptied everything that he had, and 3 times in his life he gave away half of what he owned. Muawiyah, when he made the peace treaty with Imam al-Hasan, some people they came and they told, because one of the bands of the treaty was that he has to give Imam al-Hasan a certain amount of money every year. This is this was something that they agreed upon. So some people they came and they told Muawiyah, "Why are you giving al-Hasan so much money?" Muawiyah replied, he said, "When I give Hasan money, I'm giving all of the city of Medina money, because he doesn't take it for himself. He distributes it. He distributes it amongst the people." And this is something that Imam al-Hasan did. He would keep giving and giving. This is the akhlaq of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And you see, the final point that I want to mention is the worship of the Imam. The worship of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. They say that he used to walk to Hajj. 25 times he walked on his feet. He walks to the Hajj, and the camels and the horses and the cattle, they're with him. It's not that he doesn't have. He's walking and they're with him. He's taking them to sacrifice them in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They would come and they would tell him, "Oh, son of Rasulullah, why don't you at least ride the horse? Why don't you at least ride the camel?" He tells them, "Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has invited me to his home, and I'm embarrassed to be going as if I'm riding a horse while I'm going to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I would rather walk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." They say that when it came time for his wudu, he's performing wudu, they would see him shaking. They would see him shivering. His face would become pale. And then they tell him, "Oh, son of Rasulullah, what has happened to you? Why have you changed?" He replies, "Do you know in front of who I will be standing? أريد الوقوف بين يدي جبار السماوات والأرض." I want to stand in front of the creator of the universe, the creator of the solar system. You expect me not to shiver? You expect me not to shake? This is the akhlaq of the Imam. This is the akhlaq of Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ziyarah of Imam al-Hasan. This Imam who is mazloom, until today he is mazloom. Even amongst some of the followers until today. We should remember the Imam more. We should name our children after the Imam. We should have the Imam in our mind. And until today you see that the Imam's grave has been destroyed. The graves of the Imams have been destroyed. Is this how the Ummah repaid Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi? Is this how they treated? And we see that this is how they treated the family of Rasulullah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the ziyarah of Imam Hassan alayhi salam and the shafa'ah of Imam Hassan, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from the true followers of Imam Hassan alayhi salam. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa ala ahli baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.